Hi everyone, it's Michelle from Cake Craze. Today I'm going to show you a really cool stenciling technique video. So we're going to use my Cake Craze stencils and I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks. And I know I already have a stenciling video on YouTube, but today I'm going to show you how to stencil both sides of the cake. I'm going to show you some really cool tricks that nobody else knows about, and I'm going to show you some cookies as well. So let's get started. So what you'll need is a palette knife. I've got a clear acrylic scraper. I've got my Cake Craze stencil. I've got some masking tape to put the stencil onto the cake. I've got some fresh white royal icing there. I've got a display cake pre-covered, and it has a luster finish and it's just sitting on a temp board. I've also got a non-slip mat and a turntable. So we're going to get started by putting some masking tape through the Cake Craze loops, and I'm going to do that sticky side up. So I fold it back over onto itself. And I want it sticky side up because I don't want it to damage my luster at all. So you just thread it through. These are your anchor points so your stencil won't go anywhere, and fold it back over onto itself. Now we're ready to put the stencil onto the cake. So I start to fold that around, and I bring the tape around this way. It's a little bit long, so I'll take some off. And then I will pull hard on the other side and attach that tape back onto itself. So it's fully attached, the stencil's nice and tight, and it's not going anywhere. So I have my fresh royal icing and it's all whipped up. It's a really nice consistency, so I get that on the back of my palette knife. So it's like a peanut butter consistency. It's not falling off, it's not dripping, it's not going to go behind the stencil. So that's what we're looking for. So all you need is a little bit on the back of your palette knife, and I start on one edge of the stencil and spread a thin layer. So you don't need a lot. The more you put on, the more you have to scrape off. So all we need to do is have a really nice even covering and we're fine. So just gradually move along. Make sure all of the pattern is covered. So the Cake Craze stencils will fit around half of an 8-inch cake, which is this size. So I'm going to stencil one side, leave it to dry, and then come back and stencil the other side. So just go back, make sure all of the pattern's covered. You can scrape off any excess when you do that. Pop it back into the bowl. Once you're all covered, you're going to take your acrylic scraper, and if it has a beveled edge, you're going to use the sharp edge. So we're going to go from right to left because that's the way I started working, and I'm right-handed. So we're going to scrape across. Take that off so you can see how much comes off. So you really don't have to put very much on. Take that off and continue scraping. Okay, so you can see that you really don't need a great deal on there. So we'll scrape that off. we'll check back over it and see if we can see any problem areas. I can see I haven't covered just one tiny little bit at the top there. And I'm just going to go for one more scrape to make sure it's nice and even. Now the aim is to be able to just see the pattern through the royal icing. So it's not too thick and it's not too thin. If you see any areas that look a bit thicker that you can't see the pattern through clearly, then just give them a scrape. So just check right at the end here. Okay, so you can clearly see there all the way through to the pattern, and it looks like we have a nice even consistency there. So what we're going to do is start to untape. We're going to untape the stencil, but we're going to hold on to it because remember it's not stuck. And we are going to take off the stencil, peeling away really carefully around the cake. Okay, then we have our finished product there, and any little bits that have gone above the stencil, we can take those off. If you've got any problem areas, you can have a look and fix them with a paintbrush or a sharp knife just to scrape back, but that's a pretty good coverage there, and it looks amazing with the luster as well. Okay, so for my next group of techniques and tricks, I'm going to show you my contact trick that I've come up with. So this is just normal sticky contact that you would put on books. And what I've done is I've cut out a circular shape and stuck a square straight onto the stencil. Okay, now what is hard is if you tried to do this with masking tape in a perfect circle, that wouldn't really work. Masking tape's great for if we're sectioning off large pieces, but to make circular or different shapes, this trick is so much easier and will save you so much time. So I'm going to show you this first on a fondant covered board with one of my plaque shapes. So all I've done is put the plaque on top of the contact, traced around it, and then cut it out so it's the perfect shape. So if you want to do anything special like this on a cake, then you have it right there. No worries, it won't bleed under or anything, you're going to get the perfect shape. So I'm going to show you that now. So we've got our royal icing and palette knife. So I'm going to pop that down, royal icing over the top. So my big tip is try and stencil the next day after your fondant is dry. Okay, try not to do it the same day because it's going to be quite soft and then there's fingerprints and everything like that. So we're going to scrape that across. Okay, so we can just see through the stencil. That's what we want to see, and then we'll peel that off. And you've got that perfect plaque shape in whatever stencil design that you choose. And you can really do that with any shape. You're only limited by your imagination. So now I'm going to show you the circular one. Now this is great to do cupcake toppers or cookies, which I'm going to show you a cookie version very soon. So all of the royal on there. So this is the evergreen leaf Cake Craze stencil, and I'll scrape that off and peel that off, and I've got a perfect circle there. So that's super perfect, and what I can do is I can get my circle cutter, cut that out and put that on top of a cupcake or a cookie, or I can make shapes on the side of a cake as well. The other thing is you can masking tape off any sections of your stencil. You might want to just do a border or just a little bit of a pattern. And all you do is just block that off with the masking tape. But like I said, if you're going to do a different shape or a circular shape, then it's better to use that contact trick. And if you do use that contact trick, the best way to get the contact off your stencil is to wash it first in warm water and then peel it off so it doesn't damage your stencil. So we're going to scrape that. So this is just getting a little section of your stencil. If you just want part of a pattern or you just want a border to go down, and we'll take that off. So it's nice, clean ways to get patterns in shapes that you need them. The next technique I'd like to show you is not actually using royal icing on your stencils. So stencils have a few other uses, and one of them I like to do is actually imprinting into the fondant. So I've just rolled out some fondant and I'm going to show you how I do that. So with a small rolling pin, I'm going to roll along the top of it and I'm going to create that imprint of the stencil. Okay, so when I take that off, you can see that the pattern is in the fondant. Now this is a really good way to do cookies, and you can do this as well with your royal icing. So if you wanted to stencil this piece of fondant because you want to cut out cupcake toppers or cookie toppers, you can absolutely do that. So if you just take the circle cutter, cut out the circle there, and usually we use a bit of sugar syrup on the cookie to stick the fondant, and then we pop that straight on. So you've got an imprinted, stenciled cookie. Okay. So it's nice and easy, and it's another use for your stencils as well. So now we're going to stencil the other half of the cake. I've let this half dry for the last 10 to 15 minutes and it's dry to the touch. So what we're going to do is line up the stencil, and we're going to take that masking tape around, sticky side up again, and we're going to fold it back onto itself. I'm going to pull nice and firm. Okay, so again, it's fully attached. It is across the top of the other stenciling, but it's dry, it's sitting on top of it, and it's sticky side out, so it's not going to stick to it or damage it at all. So what we're going to do is just repeat this whole process, scrape it off, and we'll have a fully finished cake. Once you have all of your stencil covered, then you're ready to take it off carefully. So remember, peel off and still hold the other side of the tape so your stencil doesn't just fling off the cake. You want to have control and peel it off nicely. Okay, and there's our finished product. Looks almost seamless with the two, as the two sides match up perfectly. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe below. If you've got any questions or need some advice about stenciling, make sure you pop it in the comments below. And don't forget that you can get my Cake Craze stencils on the Cake Craze website, or if you're in the US, you can get them from New York Cake in New York City. I'll see you soon. Happy caking.